Thank you. Is anybody here for the first time? Oh my goodness. Well, it's nice to meet all my new friends as well as those whom I have already met. So before we do anything else, we introduce ourselves to each other. So please introduce yourself to the people to your left and to your right and in front of you and behind you. And now please join with me and let's take a deep breath and close our eyes. We see in the middle of our mind a little ball of golden light. And we watch this light as it begins to grow, larger and larger, until now it covers the entire inner vision of our mind. And we see for ourselves within this light a beautiful temple. We see a garden that surrounds the temple and a body of water that flows through the garden. We see that the inside of the temple is lit as well by this same beautiful golden light. And here we are, for we have been drawn together by the power and in the presence of God. We devote our time spent together, all of our relationships and experiences of one another to Him. And we pray that His most Holy Spirit be upon us, lifting us above and beyond the thoughts of sorrow and fear and despair to the infinite love and inner peace that lay beyond. And so it is. Together we say, Amen. Also, I want to welcome those of you on live stream. I forgot for a minute, so thank you no matter where you are, welcome. Tonight I want to talk to you about the practicality of spirituality, the practicality of books like A Course in Miracles. For anyone who might be new here to A Course in Miracles, Course in Miracles is a set of books. 3 volumes are contained actually in this one book. It is a mind training, a psychological mind training on the relinquishment of a thought system based on fear and the acceptance instead of a thought system that is based on love. A Course in Miracles is not a religion. There is no doctrine, there is no dogma. It is based on universal spiritual themes. It does use traditional Christian language, but in a decidedly non-traditional, psychotherapeutically oriented way. A Course in Miracles has been described as a self-study program of spiritual psychotherapy. What we learn here are principles, themes, the Course in Miracles says, universal spiritual themes that are found in all the great religious and spiritual systems of the world. Now, when I said that it's not a religion, you know, the word religion comes from a Latin root, religio, which means to bind back. The idea here is that the thinking of the world is 180 degrees away from thinking that is the deepest fundamental truth of who we are, which is the same thing as saying that the world is dominated by thinking that is 180 degrees away from God. God is love. And the love of God in each and every one of us is a love that is not separate, love in you, love in you, love in you, and love in me, but rather more like an aspen grove. We are all united by the fact that we share the same root system. The notion of the collective unconscious that was popularized by the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung is the notion that if you go deep enough into your mind and deep enough into mine, that there are a set of mental archetypes that we all share. The metaphysical notion of the Christ mind goes one step further. It's not just that there are mental images in you that are the same as the mental images in me. It is rather that if you go deep enough in you, and deep enough in you, and deep enough in you, and deep enough in me, we are one mind. Much like a wheel. If you identify the spokes of the wheel with their position on the rim, it seems like there are many spokes to the wheel. But if you identify each spoke with its original point, its point of origin, it is one point. And so the notion of faith in the Christ, for instance, from a metaphysical perspective, it is the notion that I have faith that in that place where I am you and you are me. Now notice that. Where does something like the creation of intimacy come in once you realize that you don't have to create intimacy, because how much more intimate could we be than that we are each other? And we keep seeking to form bonds. We keep seeking to form connection when really it is the acceptance and the realization of the connection that is already the truth of who we are that opens the mind to the thinking and thus the behavior, which will then manifest in the world the oneness that we share. Now, we all are aware that institutional organized religions in many cases throughout history have become problematical at best. But many people, having turned their backs on certain dimensions of dogma and doctrine that they received in certain religious orientations, have now found that they threw away the baby with the bathwater. That they didn't want the dominance of rules that they didn't understand and doctrines that made no sense, but we still want the essence of the religio. We want the essence of the spiritual and mystical experience that is at the heart of all the great religious and spiritual teachings. So there's a great revolution, spiritual revolution going on. In many ways, it's going on within religious institutions. Here, I think Marble is an example. The collegiate churches, Michael Brown, Jackie Lewis, there are so many ways and places where you see and you might find within your own religious orientation. A Course in Miracles calls to people from all different religious systems and from no religious systems. What we are about is the actual spiritual experience that is the ultimate goal of any religious context. And that has to do, number one, with the realization that we are not many, we are one. We are not separate from each other, but we are rather one. And the part of my mind that realizes my oneness with you, whether you call that the Christ mind or the Buddha mind or the Shekinah that is spoken of in Judaism, there are many words that we can use to describe this. But if I live my life from the realization that at the deepest level, like the aspen trees, even though above the ground they appear to be separate, but below the ground there is only one root system, so that actually it's the largest living organism on earth. If we live from that place, living from that confluence of thought that realization gives rise to, keeps me within a cosmically ordered universe. What does that mean? It makes me wise, it makes me smarter, makes me kinder, makes me more able to form good relationships, makes it easier for me to create, to be effective on the earth, etc. When you live outside the realization of who you are, when you live outside the realization that you are not separate from everybody else, but you're actually one, that you are not this separate identity of bodies and worldly story, but that rather your actual true identity is not of this world. When you realize this, you stay within that cosmically ordered universe. When you do not realize that, you are cast out of the garden, symbolically, and you are cast into a disordered, chaotic universe. And that, of course, gives rise to anxiety, it gives rise to depression, it makes us fractured within ourselves. When I do not realize who I am, I experience myself as fractured from my source. I cannot realize, from a spiritual perspective, I cannot realize who I am without realizing where I come from. The Course in Miracles says you have an authorship problem. You are led to believe on this earth that you authored yourself. And so you think of yourself, the Course says, as needing to go out there and figure out what you should do. And so that's kind of how we live our lives. Like, I got to just figure out what I think I should do. and then we saunter out into the world. But if I think my function on this earth is to just go figure out what I think I should do, I am out of alignment with the spiritual perspective. The spiritual perspective is, I am love. I am love because I am an idea in the mind of God. And I am on this earth in any given instant, in any given moment, that the love of God, that is the home, my true source, which is always in any given instant, mine to download from the higher regions of consciousness. And then as I receive that loving thought, then it comes into my brain, it comes into my subconscious, it works through all that I have, all that I am, and then my job is to extend it out into the world by making myself devotional and surrendered, praying that I be used. Now, those are two very different orientations to life. One is, I got to go figure out what I want to do. And the other orientation to life is, dear God, please use me. Now, this notion of, dear God, please use me, as we were talking about last week, every cell in the body is assigned. Every cell in the body is assigned to a particular organ. It could be the blood, the bones, the abdomen, the whatever. And it is assigned to other cells with which it collaborates in order to serve the healthy functioning of the organ and the organism of which they are part. The body, in other words, is self-organizing. The spiritual perspective is that the entire universe is self-organizing. The universe, as well as the body, are not only self-organizing, they're self-correcting. The body of humanity, of the human species, would not have thrived, would not have survived and thrived over the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years that we have, without being imbued with the capacity to take a hit. It's called the immune system. Because of the immune system, we are able to integrate quite a large amount of assault and injury and disease and heal from that. The psyche has an immune system. Society has an immune system. So when a cell dysfunctions, and you and I are all cells in the body of humanity, when a cell dysfunctions, the body, through the immune system, has a way of bringing forth correction. Now, what is happening in the human race at this moment is dis-ease. And as we were talking about last week, just as in the body, when cells lose conscious contact, as I would say in AA, when cells lose the connection through their own natural intelligence to their rightful place in the scheme of things, collaborating with other cells to serve the healthy function of the whole, when instead cells go over here and say, I just want to do my own thing and figure out what I want to do, that's called malignancy. It's a malignancy in the body. It is cancer in the body when cells just go off to do their own thing. It is a malignancy in the body, and it is a malignancy in consciousness. And that is what has happened to the human race. We have forgotten that we are here with and for each other. And that has turned us into cells that are going off and doing our separate things, too often without deep consideration of our divine function, our natural function, to collaborate with others to serve the healthy function of the whole. That should be our question that we ask ourselves in relationships. How am I collaborating with others, not attacking other cells? The cancer cell attacks other cells. We're not here to attack other cells. We are here to collaborate with other cells in order that together we serve the healthy functioning of the whole. And that thought, that trend, that trajectory of energy is what makes the body survive and thrive, and that trajectory of energy is what makes society survive and thrive. But we have developed a society in which we have allowed the idea that it's all about me. It's all about me just going out and doing what I want to do. And it's not just this society, it's human civilization. We have fallen asleep to our divine function. Our divine function being our realization of who we are, by a realization of who we are together, by knowing that we are not here to attack, we are here to love, we are here to collaborate. That should be the purpose of every relationship. That should be the purpose of every business. That should be the purpose of every domestic and international policy. How do we support the process by which humanity thrives? That's the problem. The problem takes many different forms. Environmental desecration comes from the fact that we are not reverent towards the earth. The fact that there are so many problems on this planet comes from the fact that we are not reverent towards our function as being the generation that is here to take care of generations behind us. You could look at almost any problem on the planet today and make a very, very serious argument for the fact that if we made our bottom line giving every child on the planet, to the best of our ability, under 8 years old, everything they need in terms of food, in terms of health, in terms of opportunity, if we actually took care of our young, which is what the body does. Any woman that has ever brought a child to term knows that you're kind of oven detail when you're pregnant. Nature clearly is on the side of the new one coming. If your bladder needs to be moved to the side, your bladder will be moved to the side. If you need to not sleep, that's it, because you can just feel it in your body that this nature is about the new one, not about you. And when society functions in a healthy way, we see ourselves that way. But we do not put our children first. Children have no economic leverage. Children, therefore, do not have huge corporate lobbyists, etc. So we could go on and on forever about how many of the problems on the planet today come from the fact, as Gandhi said, the problem with the world is that humanity is not in its right mind. However, what we want to concentrate on is the fact that in nature there is an immune system. Now, given things such as our presidential election and the politics in the United States and international terrorism, it is a very disturbing time. It is a very disturbing time because it seems that the problems are so multifaceted that it's like playing whack-a-mole. It's like every time one problem seems to be sort of taken care of, another 2 or 3 emerge. It's very much like the Hindu story of the goddess Durga. You know, Durga is a very luxuriating goddess, and she doesn't really like to be bothered. She's up there in whatever that realm is that she loves so much, and she just kind of glances down. And in that particular story, humanity is in big trouble. And humanity starts praying to Durga, Durga, please come help us, come help us. And she goes, no. And they go, well, we really need you, we really need you. And she says, do it yourself. And they start cutting the heads off the monsters. But unfortunately, every time in the kingdom they cut the head off the monster, 3 more appear. And that certainly seems parallel to a lot of what's happening on the planet. Finally, things get so bad that they beg Durga to come down. And she does. She says, all right. She comes down. The kingdom is brought back into natural divine right order. This is why Mahatma Gandhi said about India, in order for India to overthrow the colonialism of the British Empire, he said there needed to be a spiritual awakening. It's why the nonviolent movement for civil rights in the United States in the 1960s, as Martin Luther King said, would come from a spiritual awakening. It's why Einstein said the problems of the world the solutions to the problems will not be on the same level of thinking as the level on which the problem manifests. So Durga comes down, and because Durga is present, the monsters are finally slayed. They are finally gone. And then it's very interesting because Durga doesn't hang around. They say, oh, please, Durga, stay down with us. She says, no. She goes back up. I love her, the whole tone of Durga. She's so like, but there's this sense that if you need me again, I will be here. But the message of all the gods and all the goddesses, the message of Jesus, the message of any great religious and spiritual avatar, is not what they do for us, but rather what they do through us. God cannot do for us what he will not and cannot do through us. God's power is unlimited. What is too often limited is our miracle readiness. What is too often limited is our willingness to be used. And this is where free will comes in. In any given moment in all of our lives, in any given moment, we are confronted by a choice. And in any given moment, we make a choice. We make that choice consciously, or we make that choice unconsciously. Will I open my heart and allow myself to be used? What is the non-judgmental thought? What is the non-defensive thought? What is the loving? What is the alignment? What is the divine alignment? If I am love and I'm on this earth to be God's representative of love, what do I think and what do I do? But the problem is that, as I said earlier, the thinking of the world is 180 degrees away from the thinking of God, and from the time we're very, very young, we are trained to think in the exact opposite way. We are taught that we are not one, but rather that we are separate. We are taught not that we are here to collaborate, but that we are here to compete, and that if you get a piece of the pie, there's less for me, and therefore I'm going to grab a piece of the pie and not worry about the fact that there's less for you. We are taught that each other are dangerous, basically. We are taught the thoughts of attack and the thoughts of defense. That is what the Course in Miracles calls the ego mind. There are many different ways, many different words for this. It's kind of like, I remember telling myself many years ago not to worry about the devil. There's nothing out there, trying to stalk the world for, people's minds. And I remember saying to myself, Marianne, you absolutely do not have to worry about that. That is so completely that's all in your mind. And then I realized that is the worst place it could possibly be. That is the point here. It's in your mind. There's no devil out there, but then metaphysically there is no out there. Time and space themselves are all an illusion of consciousness, as Einstein said, albeit a persistent one. But there is within all of us. You can call it the shadow. The Course in Miracles calls it the ego. It is this tendency to perceive without love. It is our tendency to perceive without love. And because we are taught a thought system based on ego from the time that we're born, the Course in Miracles says that by a very early age, natural loving thought feels unnatural to us. And unnatural thought filled with attack and judgment and defense actually feels more natural. So as Course in Miracles students, as we read the text, as we do the workbook exercises, the 365 days of workbook exercises, train the mind to think along the lines that the text sets forth. It's no different than going to the gym. You train your muscles. And if you do not train your muscles after a certain age, if you're not working at keeping them up, they're headed down. Same with your mind. It is the same principle. You are training and honing your attitudinal muscles. Because at a certain point, if you're not working at keeping them up, they're headed down. What does down mean? What does gravity mean? Emotional gravity, psychological gravity. Cynicism, anger, right? Victimization, all the disempowering thoughts which will lead you to behavior which will only make things worse. The Course in Miracles says the ego is the great dictator of wrong decisions. Now, we already talked about how in the body, when there is disease, when there is dysfunction, when there is a problem, there is an immune system. In my latest book called Tears for Triumph, it's about our psychic immune system. When we are going through grief, when we are going through loss, how the psychic immune system operates. And tonight, what the conversation becomes is what is the societal immune system. We know that there are many different problems. Many people feel moved on different levels, just like in the body, every cell is assigned. You are assigned to the heart, you are assigned to the liver, you are assigned to the blood. Many of us feel, you feel a passion for the environmental issues. That's your assignment. You feel a passion about children. That's your assignment. You feel a passion about social justice, criminal justice reform, prison industrial complex. That's your assignment. You feel a passion about women. That's your assignment. You feel a passion about peacekeeping issues. That's your assignment. And when it comes to voting, when it comes to politics, as President Eisenhower said, that should be the part-time profession of every American. It is one of the ways that we consciously rise to the occasion. And that's the difference between a suppressed immune system and a healthy immune system. I remember many, many years ago, I was living in New York, and there was a big story. And the story was about a little girl who had been living, it was here in Manhattan, with a foster care father, and he killed her. And the reason the story was so big at the time was because quite a few people had called. Quite a few people, do you remember that? It was decades ago. Quite a few people had called what they thought were the proper authorities. So the problem was not that people hadn't noticed. The problem was that people hadn't cared. The problem was that the system wasn't vital. So the problem wasn't just this man. The problem was the immune system. And that's how an immune system operates. There are in all of our bodies, you know, the bacteria and the germs and the viruses and even the cancer and all of that. But in the immune system, the cells rise up to take care of it. We've been talking about this political season. You know, many of the things that everybody's so appalled about right now didn't just emerge. They didn't just happen. Where you do not, the metaphysical principle here is if you do not use your psychic energy, the power of your mind, in the service of the light, darkness sets in. We have this myth of neutrality. We live our lives like, well, I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody. I mean, I'm not out to help anybody, but I mean, I'm not out to hurt anybody. The Course in Miracles says there is no such thing as a neutral thought. Every thought we think either leads us and those around us to heaven, i.e. the consciousness of our oneness and the peace that results from that, or to hell, which is the anxiety and the craziness that we feel when our ego mind is in charge. So if you don't fill your house with light, don't be surprised when there's no light. That's called darkness. So from a psychological perspective in terms of spirituality, if we do not live our lives for love, why are you then surprised when hate grows so loud? And if you look at so many of the sources and so many of the roots of some of the worst problems that exist in society and in civilization today, both internationally and domestically, if people had received what they needed when they were too young to give it to themselves, so many of the things that we see in the world, for instance, we should see large groups of desperate people anywhere in the world as a national security risk. Anytime you have a large group of desperate people, that is a petri dish of pathology, of collective pathology and dysfunction. Anytime you have large groups of desperate people, there will be people who are more receptive and more vulnerable to ideological capture by genuinely psychotic forces. It's the same in the body. If you don't take care of your body, if you don't feed your body, if you don't provide nutrition for your body, if you don't boost your immune system, if you don't exercise, if you don't think a certain way, then sickness will set in. But what the ego would say is, well, you don't have to take care of the body, then the sickness will set in, and it's the old paradigm of allopathic medicine. Then just once the sickness shows symptoms, then you will seek to eradicate and suppress the symptoms. We have moved beyond that in terms of the body, and we need to move beyond that in terms of the society at large. If you want peace in the world, you can't just wait till there's violent outbursts and seek to suppress it. You have to proactively create a world that works. And the only way that we can proactively create a world that works is if we see love as the only reason that we are here. But that's not an easy love. That's not necessarily convenient love. You know, when you think of how terrorists operate, these people are serious. Can you imagine a casual terrorist? A person who's like, you know, when it's convenient, I'll do it. These people have shown in horrifying ways they are very, very serious about effectuating the worldview they believe in. The problem is not that there are more people whose hearts are filled with hate than there are people whose hearts are filled with love. That's not the problem. It's that people whose hearts are filled with hate, in far too many cases today, act with conviction. And the Course in Miracles says miracles arise from conviction, the power of thought. And those of us who feel and believe in love and want the world to be loving are too often willing to be, you know, when it's casual, when it's convenient, I'm committed to love. And what is convenient love? Convenient love is I'll take care of my children, but I don't want to have to think about the children on the other side of town, and I don't want to have to think about the children on the other side of the world. Convenient love is I can be really nice and lovely to you. It's easy because you're nice to me. Inconvenient love means I'm going to try to find my spiritual center even when you have not been nice to me, because I know that my capacity to know that whatever you're doing that is loveless towards me, because only love is real and nothing else exists, if I am willing to stand within the space of love, regardless of the lovelessness that is thrown at me, I become a space wherein which the lovelessness is transmuted. Now, each and every one of us is, if we, it's like in the show Mission Impossible. This is your assignment should you wish to take it on, right? Should you wish to take it on means if we are willing to say to God, use me. If we are willing to say, I am willing to be an immune system cell. So it's not like society cannot repair itself. This is extremely important right now with this presidential election. There's some very, very disturbing things in the air these days. There's some very dangerous things in the air these days. That should not be minimized, and we shouldn't pussyfoot around that, and we shouldn't pour pink paint over it and pretend that it's not happening, because it is. But if we feel hopeless in the face of it, then what will happen is that we start ourselves spinning out anger, disengagement, cynicism, etc., or just force back. That is not the answer. The answer is a miracle-minded one. The first sentence in the Course in Miracles is, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. The Course in Miracles says God has an answer to every problem the moment the problem appears. So we begin with the fact that there's all this hate talk in America today, that if we take responsibility for the talk that should be held in our society, then the talk that theoretically has no place here. A lot of people are saying things today and people are going, whoa, that kind of language has no place in our civic discourse. That we shouldn't even be going near there. There are too many people in America today who don't seem to know that. Who don't seem to know that, for instance, a peaceful transfer of power, and the fact that basically whoever wins an election, we go with that, even if there was a problem in a particular election, just some certain basics of civics and civic discourse. But when you look at how many kids in America today aren't even taught civics. There are so many ways in which we have, generation after generation, year after year, acquiesced to the diminishment of the vital thought forms that are necessary, not only in terms of our individual lives, but collectively. John Adams, who was the second president of the United States, said that he hoped that every July 4th we would revisit, he said, the first principles of our founding. And the founding of the United States was founded on enlightened principles. Now, we can talk about the irony, and it is an irony, it is a tragic irony, of how many of the people risked their lives to establish those principles were themselves slave owners, and slavery couldn't be more of a transgression against those very principles. But that is part of our DNA, that ironic dichotomy between the fact that we are founded on these enlightened principles, the fact that we have never fully embodied them, but the fact that the political journey of the United States is the effort to do that. And in every generation, ours no less than any other, there are two forces. There are the forces who say, hey, let's take this seriously, that all people are created equal. Wow. And that everybody should have equal access to opportunity. Wow. And that we should be free to self-actualize and be whatever we want to be and do whatever we want to do and say whatever we want to say as long as it hurts no one else. And wow, you can be any religion here or no religion, and government can't stop you, and how that liberates the conversation. And that this would be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. These are sacred principles to which we have been giving lip service for too long. We should therefore not be surprised that those who now recounter those principles in so many ways have risen up among us. In Judaism, it says that every generation must rediscover God for itself. And in the United States, every generation must rediscover why these things matter. And what's happening today is that voices are rising up that are saying things and doing things, just like in every generation. There are those who say, let's make this stuff real, and there are those who say, oh, let's not. But just as we had slavery, the power and the beauty of our journey is that we do tend to self-correct in time. So we had slavery in this country, but ultimately slavery was abolished. Women were not given the right to even vote, but ultimately women's suffrage was established. Then there was institutionalized white supremacy and segregation, legal segregation in the American South, and ultimately the civil rights movement dismantled those operations. Gay people were not allowed to vote, and then a generation that rose up that changed that. So we want to see ourselves as no different than any other generation. The great things about this country, the great things about life, are not guaranteed to us. They have to be downloaded by us. You know, too many times we act like why aren't I getting the good stuff? God doesn't give us the good stuff. God gives us the good stuff through us to be manifest. It's our responsibility. And so, you know, we have become a society where everything's about the pathology, everything's about the wounding, everything's about the microaggression and what I'm not getting, and somebody violated me or transgressed upon me. This keeps us infantilized. It keeps us from becoming the adults we need to be. Would you think that the people who were abolitionists didn't have childhood wounds? Do you think the people who were women's suffragettes didn't go through terrible, terrible experiences with people making them feel horrible, even throwing them in jail and doing terrible things to them for the fact that they were part of that movement? Do you think that the civil rights workers didn't go through terrible things, including sometimes being murdered? I mean, we need to stand up and see ourselves as that vital immune system. Because the universe not only self-organizes in the ways that we were talking about every cell, the universe also self-corrects. There's nothing going on in our society today that cannot be righted if you become who you are capable of being and I become who I'm capable of being. We are all programmed. Just as the embryo, when a woman brings a pregnancy to term, there is a blueprint within her body by which the embryo would become the baby. There is a blueprint within every acorn by which it becomes an oak tree. There is a blueprint within every bud by which it becomes a blossom. It's not like you have to just go build a house without there already being an architectural blueprint. Yes, we are builders, but the problem is we go out to build our house, our life, but we're not following a blueprint, and we think it's our job to design it. But from a spiritual perspective, God has already divined the divine architecture. There is already the perfect template of your life, so that just as the acorn is already programmed to become the oak tree, A Course in Miracles, it would indicate that you are already programmed to become the man or woman that you are capable of being. Each and every one of us is programmed to rise to the highest and fullest manifestation of our capacity this lifetime, and that is, by the way, infinite. The Course in Miracles says that the people on this planet who've achieved the most have achieved a fraction of what each of us is capable of. So let's just sit with that for a moment. Think of the greatest geniuses. Think of the greatest artists. Think of the greatest scientists. Think of the greatest philosophers. Think of the greatest anything. Beethoven, Shakespeare, Martin Luther King, anybody. The people who would you just go, whoa. The Course in Miracles says they achieved a fraction of what each and every one of us is capable of. So when you look at the dysfunction in the world, when you look at the diseases in the world, when you look at the problems in the world, the ego mind says the problem is in the world. The Course in Miracles says, no, what's happening out there is a reflection of us. So if the aspen grove is diseased, you can't just treat the tree, you have to treat the roots where the disease is. And that means that not only are each of us already programmed to be the highest manifestation of our capacity, we are also programmed with exactly what we need in order to be the people through whom, in this historical moment, this country and this planet is repaired. Are you with me? So the notion here is that, once again, when the Course says God already has the answer to every problem the moment the problem occurs, that means that you already have within you the divine blueprint by which you will be who you need to be at this time in history in order to collaborate with you who already has the blueprint within you to be the man that you're capable of being. Now, the Course in Miracles would say, if you meeting this lady here would be the assignment, that all relationships are assignments, if you two meeting would be the opportunity for maximal soul growth, that together you would exponentially be able to serve more, you will meet. Otherwise, you will meet him, and you will meet her. Does that make sense? That once you realize that that's all that's happening in any moment, is that you are being asked to rise to the occasion. None of us can know for sure the part the Course in Miracles says that our piece plays in terms of the larger plan. But what we can know is that our plan is perfect. That's why the Course in Miracles says each and every one of us has a highly individualized curriculum. What's happening here is that we are, in the name of getting more, in the name of making things happen, we are failing in too many cases to show up for what is. You know, so many times we go, oh, I just need the opportunity. I need to go out and get a job. I need to figure out how to get a relationship. And I know just in my own life that if I'm honest with myself, the mistakes and the biggest problems have not been that things didn't happen. They have been that things tried to happen and I missed the moment. That opportunities came and I wasn't clear enough, I wasn't aligned enough. And a lot of times we miss the moment because we're so busy trying to make another moment happen. Because the ego wants you to be thinking about the past or thinking about the future, because the only place where the corrected perception or miracle can happen is in the present. So as Course in Miracles students seeking to be miracle workers, seeking to be cells in the immune system of our country and of our planet, the issue isn't to wake up in the morning and go, ooh, what do I want to have happen? The Course in Miracles does say, visualize and take in and envision the beautiful outcomes. But that's not what we live from. We live from a prayer in the Course, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? If you're Jewish, if you're African American, if you're gay, if you're a woman, if you're Muslim, and in this case, if you're American, you know that you honor your incarnation, that you have incarnated. The bodily level is not the fundamental level, but it is the place that we live from within. You're Christian, you're Hindu, you're Buddhist, you're Jew, you're Muslim, you're gay, you're straight, you're male, you're female, whatever it is, that to stand as perfectly as we can within the situation we already have. So many times we're so involved in like getting a relationship rather than being present in the relationship that we're in. We're always trying to get other people to change. We're always complaining about what we're not getting. You know, too many times you go into a therapy session and you're talking about your relationship and your therapist, because it's trendy today. So too many times the so-called counselor will say, do you really think that this relationship is giving you everything you need? Am I wrong? Isn't that very common? Is this relationship really giving, are all your needs being met here? That is total ego from a Course in Miracles perspective. The Course in Miracles would say, what that person should be saying is, in this relationship, are you really giving everything you have? See how the ego operates? That's why the Course in Miracles says forgiveness is the answer to every problem. If we really want to know how to fix our problems, the issue is, who am I not forgiving? Why is that? Forgiveness means I'm not going to close my heart here. What you did, what you said, your mistake, I'm not going to let that tempt me to close my heart, because miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. So if I keep my heart open, a miracle will happen. If I shut my heart down, it will not. So the universe is self-correcting. No matter what your problem in life, the universe is ready to fix it, but if your heart is closed, the love can't get in. I once had a situation, more than one actually, where I lost a tremendous amount of money. But the tremendous amount of money that I lost in both cases, from a Course in Miracles perspective, my anger at the people who were responsible. The Course in Miracles would say that money and more would have come back 1,000 times over by now. You're holding it at bay, right? Because the universe is already ready, no matter, and that's why I call the law of divine compensation. We wrote about that in a book, that the universe is ready to fix whatever the problem. Or like in relationships, you go into a situation where forgiveness would make it right. You'd have an opportunity to start again in any given instant, because that's how the universe operates. But you just had to bring it up, didn't you? You just had to bring up something from the past. And this is how the ego operates. The ego is a scavenger dog. It always wants to find the evidence of guilt in our brother. It wants to talk about the past. It wants to talk about what somebody else did wrong. Wants to talk about what we're not getting. Talks about what we want to get and what we want to make happen in our lives. And it is a killer. It is a killer individually, and it is a killer collectively. And the Course in Miracles says the greatest power that God has given you is your power to change the world. The Course says the greatest power God has given you to change the world is your ability to change your mind about the world. Change your mind about who you are and why you're here. Wake up in the morning and know that if I think of myself as who I really am, I am an idea in the mind of God. I am here for the purpose of love. If you do that, and you spend, the Course says, even 5 minutes, whether it's the Course in Miracles workbook or any other form of serious meditation. The Course in Miracles says 5 minutes in the morning guarantees Spirit will be in charge of your thought forms throughout the day. Otherwise, you're going to download from the minute you get up. You're going to read the newspaper. You're going to look on the computer. And the stress of the world and the craziness of the world is going to start sucking your life force from you from the minute you wake up in the morning. And it will bombard you and it will barrage you, particularly over the next 3 weeks. Right? And then you are totally at the effect of the craziness of the world. And you won't know, you will just be at the effect. The issue is to be at cause. To know that, yes, it's true, the world is in trouble, but God sent help. God sent me. And if you have that consciousness, not that you say this to anybody, but if your very energy, if your very energy is such that people look at you like, what do you think you are, God's gift to the world? You'd be very clear that the answer is yes. You are God's gift to the world, no more and no less than anyone else. The Course in Miracles says that all of the children of God are special and none of the children of God are special. The issue, I think the most important advice, whenever things are not as they should be in my life, you know, the Course in Miracles teaches you principles that it says become powers in your problem-solving repertoire. Who am I not forgiving, and so forth. But one of them is, get over yourself. This is so not about you. You know, a lot of times people will say, you need to go out there and remember how special you are. You know, if you want to really have power in the world, go out there and remember you're not special at all. Because if you go out there thinking you're so special, you're always going to be afraid somebody's going to discover you're not. You're not. You just happen to be the one who's assigned to that particular system. You're the faucet. You're not the water. God is the water. We're just offering up our hands and offering up our mouths and offering up whatever we are. I remember when I first started A Course in Miracles, and you know, I had the characteristic overzealousness, I think, of the new student. I'll do anything, God, use me, I'll go anywhere. And it was almost like I heard the angels in heaven going, well, she can talk. I remember thinking, I'll go anywhere. Where do you want me to go? You want me to go to India? I'll go to India. And it was like they said, Los Angeles would be good for her. It's when you take life seriously that you stop taking yourself seriously. That's the problem. We're taking ourselves too seriously because we're not taking life seriously. What matters are ideas. What matters are big principles. That's what ruins the universe. When people stop being vessels through which important things can operate. And we're in the 11th hour. It's not midnight yet, but it is the 11th hour. And as we deepen in our receptivity, not deepen, if you want to be effective in the world, you want to be powerful in the world, you recognize that you are not of this world. The Course in Miracles says each of us has this guilty secret, which is, I think I'm an alien here. The Course in Miracles says each of us has that feeling because you are. This world is not our home. Our home is not of this world. We are here, the Course says, as divine representatives, and that's what each and every one of us are. Here to be expressions. And too many times, if we're honest with ourselves, it's the lives we already have that we're not filling with spirit. We're so busy and so trained by the insanity of our society to make it about what we're not getting and how we need to go make it happen, that we're not showing up. We're not showing up as brothers, as sisters. We're not showing up as parents. We're not showing up as husbands, as wives, as lovers, as citizens. We're not showing up for our own lives because we're so busy trying to create another life. The one we have isn't good enough. Rather than realizing that if the one you have isn't good enough, it's because you're not present in some way. You're not rising to the occasion in some way. The universe isn't going to give you more garden until you first tend the one you have really beautifully. So the Course in Miracles says that we are here to create the good, the true, and the beautiful. And you start with where you are. And I started my talk tonight talking about the practicality of spirituality. And this is what I mean. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's the people who are already in your life. It's the decisions that you're already facing. It's not out there, up there somewhere. It's the person that maybe you're being a little harder on than you should be. The person that maybe you could be a little more generous to. It's not just what we go through, but how we stand within what we go through. Because the issue is to become people so aligned with love that we make wiser decisions and therefore have the ability to create better relationships and find ourselves creating with other people to do great things. That's the game, that's the dance, that's the beauty of it all. But also because none of us are perfect and we all have our wounds, we can get to the point where we don't necessarily have to act from the wound. And that's how the wound is healed. And we can become people who are transmuting the situations in which we find ourselves. And that's where we are as Americans today. Some things have gone wrong. The Course in Miracles uses the term wrong-minded and right-minded. But there have been things that have gone wrong in this society before. You know, people, I keep reading, we've never been so polarized. What are you talking about? We had a civil war. We have never been so polarized. I think we've been this polarized. We've had terrible things, genocide of Native Americans. We had slavery. We had institutional segregation. I mean, we've had terrible things before. So we have terrible things now. Yes, we have a prison industrial complex. Yes, we have a criminal justice system that is unjust. Yes, we have some terrible things happening, stronghold of major political parties, desecration of our political system, overriding of money, needing to overturn Citizens United. Yes, but let's be like other generations before us that didn't just whine about it. We can't just whine because, oh, it's so fucked up. It's an infantilization that we have allowed to set in. We need to rise to the occasion. And you know, as I said, part of the problem is our children aren't being taught history. When I was hearing these people on television today, they were because we have one candidate saying that it's a destruction of America if the other candidate wins, and so these people were being asked, if she wins, will you accept? And they said, no, we won't accept it. I mean, there's some very, very dark conversation going on. But you know what? That's because they were apparently not taught as children that that's not the way it's supposed to be here, right? And if people aren't taught civics, you can't blame it. So the point is to learn. That's why in Germany, every generation since World War II has been taught about the Holocaust. That's the way Germany guarantees this will not be happening again, because every generation is going to know what happened here. Our children aren't taught enough about slavery. They're not taught enough about civil rights. They're not taught about the legacy of racism. They don't therefore know how to contextualize what occurs now. We're not taught enough about the Constitution. Everybody's around the Constitution, who are tearing it apart with everything they say. And you know what? What we didn't know before, we can learn now. Where we were whiny and weak before, we can be strong and courageous now. The issue is not whether you got it wrong yesterday. The issue is whether you're willing to get it right today. The point of being, whether you're African American, you know history so that when stuff starts happening that's sort of racist, you can go stop right there. If you're a Jew and you know your history, you know, every people's to honor those who went before so that you can stand in service to your children. Then you hear some anti-Semitic stuff and you know when to say, stop right there. If you're gay and you know some of the stuff that's happened with homophobia in the world and you start hearing stuff and seeing stuff, you know when to say, stop right there. If you're a woman and you know about suffragette and you know about misogyny and you know about the patriarchy, you know about works, you know when and how to say, stop right there. We need to rise up because on November 8th, we're all going to have to say in concert, decisively and passionately about some things that are very dangerous for this country, stop right there. And that is what... And there's no one who's going to do it for us. That's not what America is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, if we are the power, the way power is taken away from people is when we do not exercise our power. Well, we didn't get it, you know. I've had so many things in my own life where I've thought, well, I got it wrong, but I get it now. And that's the thing. Rise up now. There is too much happening in the society today, and some of it comes from our own community, which is making us so focused on what we're not getting and how I'm wounded and I'm this and I'm that. Not that we're not having to always heal from our stuff, but like I said, some of the greatest souls in the world who have done the greatest things, they had depressed days too. And they lost children, and they were going through heartbreak, and they lost people that they loved, and they were hurt, and sometimes they even had to sacrifice at the cost of their lives, but they rose up. And that's the message of humanity, is not whether or not things happen, but whether or not the immune system rises up. And that's what needs to happen. We need to be the immune cells of our country and of our world. The world's been in trouble, but it won't be in trouble once you remember who you are, and you remember who you are, and I remember who I am. Because see, too many things in this planet are forces that would actually say to people, you human beings, we're here, you die. International terrorism, we're here, you're gonna die. Diseases, we're here, you're gonna die. Environmental implosion, we're here, you're gonna die. It's time for all of us, instead of going, oh no, for us to go, you know, before I didn't remember who I was, and I didn't realize that God was within me, and I didn't realize that through my holiness there was nothing I could not do. And so I was scared of you because I didn't realize that I have cosmic power and you didn't. And so I actually thought that when you told me to go, I had to leave the planet, and you get to say, but I remember now. I know who God is, I know who lives within me. I'm here. You go, you go, you go. That's what's going to happen. Let's do it. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you. You're very sweet to me. Thank you. I'm very grateful for that. Let's have our meditation now to solidify. You know, we think thoughts, and you want to bring them down. You know, that's why you end things prayerfully. The Course in Miracles says prayer is the medium of miracles. Our great friends Adam Isidore and Richard Learmont, neither one of them are in New York tonight or available to us, so we're going to be meditating with music. And join with me, take a deep breath and settle into your peace. When we think of the things that bring us anxiety and disturbance in our own lives, in our country, and on our planet, it is very tempting to fear. In this moment, we give all of our individual problems as well as our collective problems to God. We surrender to Him our individual concerns, problems, decisions to be made. And we surrender as well this political season, our country, our environment, our criminal justice system, international terrorism, issues of war and peace. There's so many, so much. But together we place these things in the hands of God. In placing our problems in the hands of God, we place them in a space within our own mind where we ourselves are lifted above our weakness to our strength, above our confusion to our clarity, above our woundedness to our health, above our childishness to our maturity, above our fractiousness to our wisdom, above the disordered mind to divine clarity. We surrender to God all of our relationships, asking only that they be a blessing and that we be a blessing on those we know and love. We ask to be the people God would have us be, that we might do as God would have us do. And we pray to be used. Dear God, please use our hands and please use our feet. Use us in our intimate relationships that we might be a blessing on those we love. Use us in our workplace that our work might be lifted to its highest level of service. Guide us as citizens. Guide us as brothers and sisters of each other. In us, dear God, may there thus be born a new and more beautiful world. Your world that already dwells within us. May it be brought forth through us, as through your power within us we create the good, the true, and the beautiful. Faucets for the divine water flowing through us in any moment we open our minds and open our hearts. Tell us where you would have us go and what you would have us do, what you would have us say and to whom. On this night, we dedicate and devote our lives to you, to love, and to love's purposes in the world. Lift us up, that together we might uplift the world. And so it is. Together, we all say, Amen. Okay, I just have a few